Welcome back to another math video. Today I'm going to continue with the topic of linear functions. In the previous video, I introduced 3 different ways a linear function can be represented. Today, in order to solve problems associated with linear functions, we will first need to talk about slope. Alright, let's first discuss the definition of slope. Slope is basically the term in mathematics that we use for the steepness of a line or its inclination. A better representation of that would be if I had 2 graphs. If I had the first graph that had a line that looked like this, and then the second graph I had a line that looked like this. The second graph would have a greater slope because it is steeper. It has a greater inclination. All right, so now we have a general idea of what slope is. Let's go ahead and discuss 3 different ways that we can find slope. There's one more, which is more of getting into trig, which I won't touch on, but we'll just focus on these first 3 methods and how we can calculate or find slope given a line or an equation. But slope essentially is just the change in y over the change in x. And what I mean by those is the change in those values. So this thing I'm circling here, this is how we represent the change in y over change in x. And what more specifically that is, it's just the difference in your y values divided by the difference in your x values. Slope will always be represented with the lowercase m. That's the letter we use to distinguish slope. When you see m in the equations that I went over before, that's what that means. M means slope. And y is a 2, y is a 1. I'll touch on that. Same with x of 2 over x of 1. Another way to look at slope is rise over run, and that's your y values over your x values. Rise is up, and run is from left to right. Rise is up and down, and run is from left to right. So the difference in going up and down over the difference from going from left to right. With that out of the way, let's look at a couple methods that we can use to find slope. The first option I like to go to when trying to find the slope of a line is if I'm given a graph, I find the easiest way is just to count up and down and then left to right. So what do I mean by that? If I'm given a graph that looks like this, where you can see clear intersections of the points on the grid with the graph, either like an x-intercept or a y-intercept, you can take those points and just count up and over. So in this case, we have a point here, and I can say I have a point here. Those are 2 intersections of lines. So remember, I said slope is rise over run. So I'm going to go count up and then over. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, and then over 1, 2, 3. So rise over run, so I went up 3, and then I went over 3. 3 over 3 is 1, so my slope would be 1. So I just took 2 points where they intersect the grid perfectly and just counted up and over. I probably should have discussed on positive and negative slopes. The way I look at it, if you're going uphill, I'm going in this direction. That's going to be a positive slope. If I'm going into a downhill direction, like this red line here, that's going to be a negative slope. So for this example here, we're going uphill, so we know our slope is going to be positive. And we went up 3 and over 3. 3 over 3 is 1. So this line in black would have a slope of 1. Another way to find slope, if you're given 2 points on a line, for instance, let's say I was given this point, which I'm going to label as 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 4. And then we'll say this point. 1, 2. If I'm given any 2 points on a line, the way we calculate the slope is the formula found here. This is where the y sub 2 minus y sub 1 divided by x sub 2 minus x sub 1 comes into play. Essentially, it doesn't really matter what you label as your y sub 2, x sub 2, as long as if you pick something from the y sub 2 value as what you started with, you have to make sure you pick the x sub 2 value for that. And I'll show you what I mean. So I'm just going to call this my starting point. So the equation says for slope is to take your x of 2 value. Remember, this is x, this is my y. So my y sub 2 value I'm going to take first. Subtract my y sub 1 value. This is the y coordinate at that point, which is a 1. Divided by my x of 2. Remember, I started with this. So this would be my x of 2 minus my x of 1. So 4 minus 1 is 3. 1 minus a negative 2 is 3. And once again, you get the slope of 1. So given any 2 points, you take the difference in the y values divided by the difference in the x values. And once again, since I used the same line here, I could have counted up 1, 2, 3 over 1, 2, 3. So that's why you get the same slope. The last way to identify slope, if you're given the equation and it already has slope in it. So if I've given you the point slope form, you just have to find your m, and your slope intercept form, you just have to find your m. So for instance, if I had a equation written, if I had something that had, say, y minus 2 equals 4 times the quantity x minus 3. Since we know the form, the 4 right here would be your slope. And the same goes for slope-intercept form, which is really nice. If I had, for instance, an equation that said y equals 2x plus 5, right there is our slope. So our slope is 2. And of course, we know our y-intercept too. So the m portion of these equations are your slope. If you're given the equation itself, it's really easy to pick out the slope. All right, with the introduction of how to find slope, what slope is, my next video will focus on using that information to solving some problems that you will see in your math class. Hopefully this quick review on slope helps. If you need any more help, feel free to contact me via text, call, or shoot me an email. Have a great day.